Welcome to another edition of the Cut Pro Wrestling Podcast. My name is Randy Zelia from backsportspage.com, and thank you for making us a part of your week here in the world of professional wrestling. You see who the guest is this week? The hashtag Allfather, Mr. Darius Carter himself joins the show. We're going to get to his interview in just a minute. Don't forget to follow us on all of our platforms for the Cut Pro Wrestling Podcast. We are on all the podcast platforms, Google, Apple, Spotify, YouTube. Give us a subscribe, give us a 5-star review. Tell us if you like what we're doing as far as the great interviews of professional wrestling that we do. Again, thank you very much to the staff, Alexis, John, Andrew, Jamie, Alyssa, and the rest of the staff here at the Cut Pro Wrestling Podcast. Austin, I can't leave out Austin. So thank you guys for all the hard work you do. Don't forget to check out We Are Wrestling, where we'll be sitting down with the great stars of We Are Wrestling roster, Pete Rosato and the rest of the crew. But for right now, let's meet one of the crew members, Mr. Darius Carter. Hashtag Allfather. All right, now we got it going. We're back here on the Cut Pro Wrestling Podcast. And there he is, Mr. Darius Carter, a guy we've been asking for months to get on the show. And Pete Rosato finally gave in and helped us get him. And he's here with us live. And it's funny, we were just talking before we went on the air about the way you were able to find the camera and that look of disdain you have. Man, it's such a heelish look, and I love it so much. How long have you really worked on that part of the of your performance in that sense?
I love the starter question because you do so many of interviews and podcasts, and you like to hear things different and see where people's minds are coming from. And for me, it's always actually been natural. I think that I always had I came up into a theater background. I was in the drama club. So in high school for a few years. So, I don't know. I feel like those were always natural parts of me. I feel like I've always been emotionally in tune, so I feel like, smiles and grimaces and snickers and things like that. You have to feel it. And I've never had really an issue feeling, as you grow older, you think more and you apply logic to emotion. Yeah. But, I think emotion was always there for me. I always had a fine grip on that. So it's just reflecting that and showing that.
And what's funny too, Andrew Fumi, who's our producer, he was the one who said, we should really get Darius on the show. And then I got to start watching some of your work, and we had the opportunity to see you back in Richfield Park with We Are Wrestling during the summer with Pete Rosato. And I got to tell you, man, and I've seen a lot of your intergender matches. I also saw your match against Riddle, and you're very versatile. How important is it in today's wrestling landscape to be versatile and be able to take those chances, especially at a time where maybe intergender matches may not be the most popular thing out there? What's your mindset, and what is your take on taking those types of chances?
I feel like you have to. I feel like there's so many different markets out there to cater to, and if you can show yourself in that light, and I think that's how things like Paris's Bumping came up, and my involvement in a lot of those shows, the LGBTQ shows, and things like MV Young's Polyam Mansions and things like that. It's showing versatility and showing that I can exist in any of those universes. I can exist in any of those realms, and I'm not out of place. You see that I can wrestle against just really any style, whether they're a high flyer, whether it's going to be a luchador, whether it's going to be a striker, a brawler, someone who, of course, can technically wrestle. I mean, that's the first match you're going to put me in there against. But putting me against any of those flavors, you're going to see a different side, a different element of Darius Carter. I don't approach every match the same. I mean, there's always going to be certain moves, certain things that I have in my head going into the match, my signature maneuvers or whatever. But when it comes down to it, every style is different, and if you're not adaptable to it, then it's a hole in your game. And if it's a hole in your game, you have no one to blame but yourself. You have to be ready to face any and all types of styles. And I think a lot of wrestling had kind of been flavorless a little bit. I think that A lot of it was running together. You could watch 6-7 matches in a row, and you're like, okay, you know what I mean? It's like it just feels like it's a river running. And I feel like recently, over the past few years, there's been a resurgence in terms of trying to bring some flavor. And I think the pandemic helped in so many ways. And when it comes to wrestling, and I know that's not a thing people may want to hear, but it's really fleshed out different sides of wrestlers. It made you have to look into a different side of yourself. There's not fans anymore. So if you're going to compete on a show and there's cameras, now you really have to cater to those cameras more than you maybe usually did, because you would turn to the fans instead. You have to be able to wrestle without noise, without a crowd to command it or to feed off of. And that makes you work on different elements of your game. And those are parts that I think I excelled at. I think I excel not just in working with the crowd, but in picking my spots and in making my moments matter. And I think that I really got the chance to show that in this pandemic era, whereas maybe before a lot of, my work, maybe it was running together with other people's work. Maybe there was a whole bunch of things going on. People were, not paying attention, but now you had no choice. Because I've been doing this thing and I've been doing it at a high level and I'm doing it my way and it's catching your attention now.
And not only that too, but like you were talking about, I spoke to a lot of different people on this podcast about the pandemic and what kind of adjustments they have to make. And what you just said before too, is there's been times where people have been relying too much on the crowd for a reaction. So you have to be out there and be like, okay, there's nobody out here. But you have to think about the millions of people who are watching on whether they're downloading it on YouTube or they're watching it on TV. It's just the different ways of presenting yourself. And the way you just spoke about on how you took it as a challenge is so that's so awesome to me, because a lot of people would probably be scared of like, well, it's the pandemic, I'm going to stay home, I'm not going to work on it too much.
Because they think they're set, because you think you're good. You're like, oh, I don't need it. And then there's always the aspect of, keeping you being safe and things like that. But that's something that we all have to do. We all have to, make sure that you're tested and make sure that you're protecting, not just your opponent, but yourself and everyone around you when you're in those environments. But the whole point of it is a lot of people, I feel, just, there's maybe people that just are like, they just kind of threw their hands up and your reason is the pandemic. No one's going to knock you for it. And you can't really knock those people that decided not to wrestle during the pandemic. That's your choice. You might have a family that you're looking after. You might have kids. I mean, you can't knock those people, but on the opposite end, you can't you can't ignore those that were hustling during the pandemic. You can't turn a blind eye to them, because we were carrying wrestling. We were on the screen when other people weren't. And I was making debuts during the pandemic. I was debuting, different places at Camp Leapfrog, for starters, with the Christmas trios. And that was a big promotion that was consistently on IWTV, with monthly product. So all you're seeing is Darius Carter's face, on a monthly basis. And now you're forced to watch. Now you're seeing it in maybe ways that you were watching something else, as I was alluding to before. Now here I am. You're at home. You want to watch wrestling. You want to be on IWTV. You want to be on YouTube. Well, here I am putting out work that's right in front of your face. And you're going to be like, oh, let me check that out. Oh, let me check that out. Oh, well, that was good. I didn't know he was like that. And it's like, dude, I've been around, going on 12 years, but you're just seeing me now. And that's why you can't ever be one of those people that's like, oh man, I've been at this so long. I've been at this 11 years, 12 years. Where's my spot? You can't be that person. You have to just keep hustling nonstop. My almost 12 years have been nonstop. And in your head, you can wonder, oh, you always want to be further than you are. That's natural. You always want to be ahead of where you are in life, but you can't add weight to yourself. You can't anchor yourself. And that's something I never did. I just take another challenge and take another challenge, improve myself at every facet of the game. And now people can't deny. I mean, I call myself now the most dangerous man on earth, and I think that's I think that's undeniable. I think I get in your head with the entrance. I get in your head before the bell rings. I get in your head with my offense. It's all a game, and it's all about. I was going to say it's all about how you play it, but it's the truth. It really is. It's a system, and it's systematic, and you have to be able to work it, and that's what I'm doing as we speak. So it's enjoyable to see what's on the horizon for me. Just in the first quarter alone. So it's about delivering now, and that's what I do. That's what I've been doing. So it's just Brian Keith is going to get it, and that's the way that it's going to be.
And it's funny too. The best I use this expression with my staff this morning. I think you play your music your way. Play your music your way, and it'll work itself out because it's authentic, it's organic, and it's natural. And you can grow it the way you want to grow it, but you're doing it your way, and I think that's the key way of explaining it. But let's go back a little bit. What do you remember about where you started training, and what memories do you have of your training? Did you have any moments of like, yeah, that hurt, and maybe am I doing this? Should I be doing this type of thing? Like your first couple bumps, and also where did you go to for your training?
Yeah, no, I mean there was never a question. It's like you take the fall and you're like, you got to get up, or you take the fall and you got to lay there for a little bit and you got to, you got to suck in a little bit of air and you got to get up. I mean, yeah, that's never been a problem with me. I don't quit. It just doesn't exist when you really care about something. You got to get up. You have to continue, even if you got to roll to the ropes and pull yourself up. You got to find a way up. The ring is your friend just as it is your enemy. And having that relationship with the ring is something too, and that's something you get over time with experience. I started training at BWO, a Body Slam Wrestling Organization, which was actually 2 months after I got into college, which was September of 2008. So I started training in November of 2008. So it all was running together. My college experience was shared with my introduction into professional wrestling, my intro into training, my intro into learning the business as I was doing what I was doing in college and setting myself up for business. So it's just been a hustle that I've always been on. And, you fall, you got to get up. You learn so much. I mean, you look back at the person I was in 2008, and I was like, "Oh man, that kid, he didn't know anything." But
I was in college too, man. When I was like, if I can go back and see my 18-year-old self, I'll be punching myself in the face. Like, man, what were you thinking?
All right, like wake up, man. But I was still for 18 when at the time when I really think about what I was taking on. I mean, I was really taking on a large amount. And I was young, it's like you got to be an adult at 18. You have to be, and I mean an adult in terms of not just handling things at home, but handling things at work and handling things at school, and then chasing this passion of becoming a professional wrestler and hitting those cables, the misnomer of being ropes. You're hitting the cables, you're hitting the mat, and you're squatting and you're running around the ring and you're doing all these drills and they want you to throw up and you just keep going. It's the game. You have to go through that. That's so essential. It's so essential you got to get grinded down and really pushed into the earth to know what it's like to pick yourself up, to slam your hands flat on the floor and press yourself from all the pressure that's on your back. And I've always thrived in those environments. I as a human, I just feel like I've had to I don't want to say overcome because I grew up well, but I've always had to fight. I mean, to be to be a black man, to be a black man of intelligence, to be someone that applies himself and has to basically check over my own steps and make sure I'm not misstepping, because people are waiting for you to fail. People are rooting against you. It's just how it is. Whether it's envy, jealousy, people feel a certain way when you walk in a room. It is what it is. And you got to make yourself, you got to move on. You got to make yourself better. You got to improve yourself. And that's what wrestling and training was all about. That's how I think getting into college and learning that while I started training, I think, although they were separate experiences, I think they kind of came together. And that makes sense because they were both embryonic periods. I was just getting into college. I was just getting into wrestling. So I'm learning two different things at once and keeping them separate, but also learning the lessons from both so that I could be better overall. So it was a lot. I was taking on a lot, but I wouldn't have changed it. I wouldn't change it for the world. That's just the way I am.
No, but it makes you different. And I think different in the wrestling industry is what works. So, and right now, especially in the wrestling industry, obviously WWE and AEW are the main stages, but you also have Impact Wrestling, which is slowly rebuilding, MLW, which is going to have a TV deal. Obviously, we don't know what's going on with Ring of Honor. We'll see if they rebuild their company and come back. But it's a great time to be a wrestling fan, and it's also a great time to be a wrestler to possibly get opportunities. And like you said, you've been working hard for 12 years, and you're starting to pay off. Where would you see yourself as far as your next opportunity is concerned?
I mean, my next opportunity is where my next opportunity is. I'm always one of those people that is looking to the next thing and ready for the next thing, but that next thing could come from many directions. Just as we said, we have a lot of options. We have a lot of choices on the table. Whereas maybe 3-4 years ago there weren't as many, and even then, were you where you wanted to be at that time? I mean, sure, in 2017 I was doing my thing, and I feel like 2015, 2016 was really where I not found my groove, because I think I had my groove for a while, but I think that's where I was really getting to the next step and getting to the next level beyond wrestling and just being there every month and other places that I was competing at. And I was getting around New York and building my name on the New York scene. That was all gradual, and that's something you can't rush. You can't rush that. I think sometimes people just want to get to the next thing and they're ready to just go and get signed and get the contract. And it's like, there's so much more to wrestling than signing the paper. You can wrestle. You got to think about the freedom of being independent. I mean, if you want to go wrestle down in Georgia, you can go wrestle down in Georgia. If I want to go wrestle down in Florida, I can. I mean, as long as you secure the booking and you make that stuff work. But you don't have anything binding you from making those trips. I did 2 tours of the UK. The first was a week and the second was 2 weeks. And they were 2 matches a day going all across Wales and just an incredible theaters and things like that. Yeah, experiences. But this is what you can give yourself. You don't need a contract to do that. So I'm really about forging the best Darius Carter every day. And when it's time, it's time. And then we'll see who picks me up, who gives me the opportunity. I've always been a person of loyalty. So people that take care of me and genuinely take care of me get it back tenfold. You can see just about everywhere I wrestle, I'm a champion currently, or I was a champion at some point, because I'm trusted. I make myself trusted, not just consistent inside the ring, outside the ring, professionally, but I'm somebody that is going to deliver. And that's why I get put in these positions. So anywhere where I get to compete, they bring me back or they keep me there, and I become somebody. And that's what it's about, is who's going to give me that chance, who's going to offer the olive branch. And from there, it's all me and what I do with it. And my track record shows that if you give me the ball, I'm shooting and scoring. I mean, this is what I'm going to, and it's going to roll back to me and I'm going to score again. That's what I'm doing. And I don't say that to be, to show arrogance. I say that for people to really look at the history books and to see what the resume that I've put out there for myself. It takes work. It takes effort. I'm in the best shape of my life now, and I'm out here doing what I need to do, getting the reactions I need to get, having the matches I need to have. And now here I am with Brian Keith in his Northeast debut coming up next Saturday or next Friday, a huge, a match. And it's something that I have to, the eyes are going to be on me just as they're going to be on him. And this is what I thrive in. I thrive in high pressure situations. I thrive with my back against the wall. People say that, but then when they get pushed a little, they gas out. Me, it's not. It's a lot of steak. It's not just sizzle, baby. It's steak, and it's real. And I'm excited for people to see what I know and what people close to me have known for a while. I'm glad that the doors are opening, and I'm glad that the consistency and the quality and the determination pays off, because people know I went through it, man. People were really trying to go against me, and people really tried to hold me down, and people still are, but it's just it's almost weightless now. It's like I'm not, the anchors that you're trying to wrap around my feet are slipping through the rope. It's you can't hold me. And that's how I have to be, and that's how I have to think.
You're proving them wrong, and you're succeeding. And the one thing that bothers people the most is there's two things that people don't like. One, people don't like seeing other people happy for some reason, and then there's also people don't like seeing other people be successful. And with success draws hostility. I don't know why, but like you see it everywhere. When people are starting to get successful, people become hostile towards them. I don't know why. Andrew Fumey, who's our producer, wanted me to throw this at you. I want to make sure I give him the proper credit. He wanted me to ask you what your favorite play or role that you acted in.
Oh. You know what? I'd probably have to say, so when I was in theater, my theater director liked to pick plays that were a little less known to the average person. I mean, we did like Pirates of the Penzance. Like eventually we kind of got up there, but the one I really enjoyed the most was The Mystery of Edwin Drood. And I played, and funny enough, and it was my first play, and I played Durdles, who was, I basically kind of helped morph the character into, someone who kind of talked like this, and like I gave him like his own little voice, and I gave him like a bit of a drag step. So you'd walk with one foot and then kind of drag the other behind him. And I was showing the character through body language so that people kind of, we're getting this feeling of, oh, this one's kind of a dweller, a New York City alley dweller type. I feel like I kind of turned the character and kind of like tried to put my own touch on it because it was a named character, but it wasn't the it wasn't one of the top premier focal point characters. So I wanted to make them different. And there was a point at the end of the plays where you were able to vote for basically, it was because it was a love story. So basically you were able to choose the two people that would fall in love at the end. So they would do fan votes. And I don't think I was ever meant to win. I don't think just the way that I don't say that on me. I just think the character, the way that Durdles wasn't really meant to be the love mystery type. But I ended up connecting with one of the main characters, and we had to sing it, and we had to sing it on the fly. And I did it in my character's voice. I didn't actually belt out sing. I sang it in my character, and it was Perfect Strangers. It was, oh man, I haven't talked about it in so long, so it's kind of hilarious. But I did it in the voice, and it was a fun time. Like I knew what the character was, and I honed in on that. It's not like, oh, I'm gonna come in and I don't want to say be the best actor because you're still acting, but I knew who the focal points were meant to be, and it's not about stealing it from them. It's about delivering your character in your own way. And the fact that I was able to make him memorable to people to the point where they voted for him at the end when that really wasn't a top 5 character, maybe 6, but not. So it was cool, and that was a fun little play, man. I feel like we all had a good time. The drama club was a great club for me because it allowed me to give me a place to really fit in, because I was always very social when I was young. I was a social butterfly, so I had friends everywhere. I had the emos, the jocks, the nerds. I was connected with everyone, and I never got in fights because I was always cool with somebody from every end, so I never had to get in the middle of it. I was just like, all right, whatever you guys were fighting about, I was never involved. So I was just cool with. I just had friends and connections with everybody, and I think that is that's just who I am. I don't pick and choose based off your status or your class. It's just, if I connect with you, if we're cool and you can understand where I'm coming from, then we can make this thing work. And that was a lot of fun. That's a good question, because I haven't talked about that play I've never talked about it on a podcast or an interview. And I haven't talked about it in a long time. But yeah, the Mystery of Edwin Drood, and I was Durdles, and you could look it up and look up Durdles, and imagine me playing it the way I played it. But I guess that attributes to wrestling too, is you play your role and you make that as big as you can, and you get someone's attention, you get the right person's attention. Next thing you know, you're in the finale, singing a love song to the main character.
But the thing is, though, with your character that you're doing the ring, it's so perfect. Like, just a quick little funny story. Andrew and I were at the We Are Wrestling show in Ridgefield Park, and you were in the main event. And my stepson, who has never been to an independent show, was ringside with us. And he is sitting there, like, getting up. I had to keep, and Andrew will laugh because I kept pulling him back because he kept on going over by the ring and kept on slapping the ring while you were in the ring. And at one point, you just had this look on your eyes, and you turned to him and you just went, "Shut up." And he just looked at me and he goes, "He just told me to shut up. I'm a little scared of him." And he sat back down, and he didn't say a word or get back up for like 5 or 6 minutes. Then he looks at me and goes, "Is he really that mean?" I said, "I'm sure he's a lovely man. Watch the match."
I am a lovely man. Mean is, mean is in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah, I told him. I said it was in the heat of the moment. He didn't mean to tell you to shut up. He just didn't want you to get too close to the ring because he didn't want to hurt you, and that's how we left it. But it was just a reaction. He just had this look. He's like, he told me to shut up. He was really mean. I'm like, he did. And I'm sitting there saying to myself, he did his job. He did it, and he did it well. So
got him to stop slapping the mat, didn't I?
Yes.
You respect the ring when I'm in it.
But the funny part was when you ended up taking the 1, 2, 3, he was jumping up and down. I was like, man, what's going to happen the next show when you start cheering him? I want to remind you of that. So,
oh no, you won't. I'll remind him just fine, and then you'll be bringing him right back to that chair, watching the product like the rest as they should be. Yeah, that match with Trish Adora for the Pan African World Diaspora Championship. I wanted that for such a long time. I wanted that championship match, and I wanted a match against her. So I'm glad that it came together in the same sitting. And I mean, listen, I'm still the only person that's pinned her in a Pan African World Diaspora Championship match. I pinned her successfully, 1, 2, 3. The footage exists. The championship was raised over my head, and I was announced as the new World Diaspora Champion before it was criminally taken from me. I gotta be honest, thanks in part to distractions like your stepson. That's not, these are things that all factor into a tumultuous defeat. So I'm looking forward to redeeming myself there, and not that I have to redeem myself, because I mean I really won in not winning, but Brian Keith is.
Well, I will tell you the next We Are Wrestling show, which is next Friday night. I think it's next Friday night. Yeah, next Friday night, Ridgefield Park, New Jersey. We will be there. We will be doing some live broadcasts as well from the show. But I want to just ask a couple more questions. When you were watching wrestling as a kid growing up, who were your favorites? who did you sort of model some of your some of you after from the wrestling world? And also, what was your favorite match growing up?
Right. So, and it's funny because as I watched wrestling, I matured as I watched wrestling. So,
Me too, in that. Yeah.
and that's one of the most fun parts. I think we always ask people, well, who were your favorites growing up? But as you mature, you gain new favorites. Not that you lose your old ones, but you gain new ones. So Ric Flair was always my person, just and I believed everything that he did. The limousine riding, jet flying, kiss stealing, wheeling dealing, son of a gun. I believed it front to back because he exuded it. He walked around, he had the robes, and if he wasn't in a robe, he was in a suit with the Rolex, with the shades. He always looked and talked like a champion, even if he wasn't the champion. Like even when he was in WCW, just doing whatever he was doing, he still felt to me like the best wrestler. I just felt like they weren't putting him in the ring because maybe they didn't want him to be the best at the time. But I was always about Ric Flair. I think when you look at Ric Flair's history, that man has elevated more wrestlers than anyone in the history of professional wrestling. And it's whether you like or hate him, or whether you think whether he's your favorite or not. When you look back at the long list of people from the Magnum TA to Tully Blanchard to Sting to Lex Luger to Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, all these people that he was able to get in there and just do magic. And he always made it work. And that's something a lot of people I feel are still chasing. I feel like not everyone's able to do that because, they do things their way. And people will say, oh, Flair had his type of match. But the man could wrestle anybody, and not just wrestle anyone. That person would become a star. Those are household names. Lex Luger, Sting, and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat alone. But then you talk about Dusty Rhodes. I mean, that man for me was just all-encompassing. So Ric Flair was what connected me to it. And then over time, I grew into the William Regal, where I would see him in WCW, and I was hooked with his matches because he always was getting the great crowd reaction. He was getting hated more than anybody, and more than the people that were on the main show with Nitro and such. He'd come out on Saturday night, and he would and I would always watch that if it was 6:05 or whatever, and I'd catch that Lord Steven Regal match. He always drew me to him. And then I learned more and more about him and him being in Japan and things like that. So having that part of Ric Flair, the elegance of Flair, and then that same type of nose in the air of William Regal, but the technicality of Regal versus the showmanship of Flair. So it kind of, you blend those things together, and then ultimately, you want to exude that in your own way. And I think your favorites will reflect in your work. If you really are committed to them, because then it grew into Randy Orton, and watching Orton's maturity over the years. And to me, that's the best professional wrestler in the world today. And it's been that way for years. I think the pandemic era was just a knock out of the park. And that's what I mean. There were some people that just really flourished in that time period, whether they were on TV or not. Hooked to that, and not having the fans there where you can hear him leaning in and whispering in your ears as he's mauling you. Those are the types of things I always enjoyed. I always liked that. Hey, look, we're in a fight, and if I can talk smack to you while I'm doing it, why wouldn't I? I don't like you. I've made it clear I don't like you. Beating you up isn't enough. I want you to feel it verbally and physically and spiritually. And those are the people I grew up on. And then I would look back at Nick Bockwinkel, who was before my time, but I would see his work because Ric Flair would talk about him. So I looked at that, and then I was like, Nick Bockwinkel, another one. Just pillars of professional wrestling, of the sport, that without these people, there'd be a huge hole in this sport. Think of Evolution without Randy Orton. Think of how Randy Orton now, for example, has had the most pay-per-view matches and Monday Night Raw matches. We're talking about that longevity. Those statistics matter. That means that you have not just credibility, you don't just have longevity, you have an undeniable legacy. These are the people that I look to and I say, nobody can take anything from you. You could stop tomorrow, and there are people that'll go the rest of their life and they won't catch up to where you're at. And you could live a whole nother life after this. Orton could stop now and change careers. And there are people that will never catch up to that level of credibility that he created. And that's what this is about to me. I grew up on that. And they hooked me. And that's what I want to be. I want statues of Darius Carter. I want, by the time I put it up, by the time I put the code up for the last time, you'll be like that. I can have everyone say a different favorite match that they've had of mine. That's where I want to be. Just like you can say that about Flair, you can say that against a William Regal, you can say that against Orton, you can say that against a Bockwinkel. You can ask a room, and they can give you something different because that's how good you are. I mean, there may be one uniform answer, but like when you look at Flair and you say, okay, this, that, but those types of people, you'll hear several different answers. It's like asking what your favorite Michael Jackson song is. I mean, you may hear certain ones over and over again, but then you might hear another one that might throw you off, but it's just as good as the other ones. And that's how I look at things.
And it's funny too, you say Flair, and everyone says that Shawn Michaels was the modern day Ric Flair. But if you look at the guys like the Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, and I would say Triple H to a point too, because Triple H has the ability to help bring a guy up. Ric Flair made the stars, and the stars sustained. Whereas if Triple H would work with, I don't know, I'm drawing a blank with somebody. I'm thinking
Shelton
back to
Benjamin. That's another one, by the way. Triple H
yeah.
was a huge influence on me, because I was, we're talking 9-10 when Triple H was coming up. So the 2000, and I'm talking, like that whole 97 to like 2000, 2001, and then everything beyond. But the point that I'm making is that you'll see the similarities in the people that I liked. You'll see the tying threads of the people that I idolized. And those are the parts, the corners of professional wrestling that make me yearn for more. I can literally never get enough. And those are people that have all built their own sort of legacy. These are unforgettable people. And that's if you don't want to be unforgettable, then what are you doing this for? Are you just doing this for you? Do you just want to joyride, and then after 10 years, you're good? After 15 years, you're like, all right, I'm good? Or do you want to be somebody that has to be named among the greats, that has to be mentioned? Whether I'm your favorite at the end of it all is irrelevant. If you have to mention my name, that's the point. Hey, your favorite wrestler wrestled me. Okay, good. As long as my name is coming up. And that's where I want to be.
And we're going to finish up in a second. I do have a couple more quick questions here for you. You mentioned William Regal before. And when you said that, I immediately thought of not the William Regal we saw back in 07 or 08, but I'm thinking about those when he came back to WWE in 2000, when he was the general manager, and the facial expressions that he would make. For example, like when Jericho did the P and the T type of thing, or when he was with Tajiri, or my favorite one is at WrestleMania when Kamala was in his office and you saw Regal's face just go have that just plain look of disgust. And I think back to the couple matches I was able to watch of you and your character, and some of those facial expressions, you could tell that you're definitely a William Regal fan in that sense. And I, please take that as a compliment too, because William Regal is one.
It's one of the biggest compliments to listen. It's a huge compliment. If you're ever compared in any way to someone you idolized or grew up on, come on. You gotta humility is essential in this business. No matter how much you achieve, no matter how much success you accrue, you have to have humility. And even with people like Ray's Lighting, who helped do my entrance, I'm always thanking them, because if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have those lights. What am I going to summon them from the sky? I mean, these are things that you have to be grateful for the people around you, for the camera people. I've always had good relationships with the camera people, because it's important to know who's putting you out there, because you're giving them something to capture, but they are capturing you. So it's all hand in hand. It all goes together. And that's what this business is. And I've always been business minded. So I think maybe it's a little intimidating to people because they didn't know about BWO or where I came up. I didn't come up under, someone that's on WWE right now or someone that's on AEW right now. So I don't have that. I didn't have that flag to kind of hang on. I came up in BWO, which is a nice school that was in New Jersey, that was running in Hasbrook Heights. They had Nunzio come on as a trainer, and they were the venue that when you watch The Wrestler, there was actually the first match in The Wrestler that you see was at the BWO school. So that was cool, and my trainer was in that. Richie Rotten was in the crowd and helped set it up. So if you actually watch that movie back, that first match where he faces, I believe, Tommy with the spiky hair, you'll see that ring. And that venue was the BWO venue. It's no longer there, which is a complete shame. And I think BWO didn't, from that point, they kind of fell off when they lost that venue. But man, you have to come up. You have to keep your humility. You have to realize what you've accomplished. And like, anytime I hear a comparison to a Regal, to a Bockwinkel, people say, "Oh, you're the Black Bockwinkel," and it's like, well, I want to be Darius Carter, but to even be, and I say that, but I say that seriously but jokingly because you get what I'm saying. But it's an honor to be even thought of in the same breath, and that's how you know that your trajectory is on the right path. You want to hear that, and you want to earn it. I don't want you to come up with a pen and paper and that. Like I'm earning it, and that's what this is about.
It's funny too. One of my favorites growing up on the microphone was Bobby the Brain Heenan. And at the time when I was growing up, I didn't appreciate it as much as I appreciate it now. And the other day, I was going through some old cassette tapes, and that shows how old I am. I still have cassette tapes of my interviews, and I found my second interview I ever did was with Bobby the Brain Heenan, and I found it. And I'm like, I got to find a way to play it. I gave it to my brother. He brought it over to his studio, and he just digitized it. I'm getting it back tomorrow. And one, I can't wait to hear Bobby again. And two, I'm dreading on how I sounded back when I was 20 years old doing that interview. But like my point of growth, one of the things that you put on your Twitter account, and you make sure you make it public, is your status on the PWI. This past year, number 231 of the top 500 wrestlers in the world. How does that make you feel, knowing that one of the biggest national wrestling magazines is recognizing you?
Oh man, that's the validation that I don't want to say needed, but it was essential for me. To the fact that you can go into a Walmart or a magazine store and you would see PWI, and I've done it, and I didn't go in there and take the picture. I know a lot of people will go in there and take the picture, but or at least I didn't post it. But no, but it means everything because you got to think again. This is your life, and I never stopped wrestling. I didn't take a year off or take months off. I was always keeping myself in the game at least once a month wrestling when I was coming up, and I was going to college, working in my degree, and dealing with the real job and the shoot job of working in business. So I was juggling all these things, and you want to see success in every avenue that you're taking. I didn't want to be good in one thing and the other two I was or I wanted to be great at everything. I wanted to be tremendous in school, excellent in wrestling, and I wanted to be a top person at my place of work. So, it's a lot to juggle, but to me, that keeps me. It's like a perpetual flame. It's just the fire feeds the fire, and it just never stops. It just keeps moving and moving and moving, and to reap the benefits of that now, and then to realize you just keep going, and the flaming wheel just grows and grows, and more people see it, and it's like it's just that's what it is, and you have to keep giving it, and you have to again, you have to take in that air to keep the flame going, and you have to be grateful, and you have to, be proud of yourself. And, for me, it has to keep moving. It has to keep progressing. And the business is improving in certain ways. There's other things where it hasn't improved, but you have to be that improvement. You have to be the difference that you want to see. And that's why I've been talking about change for so long. And a lot of people use it as a window dressing thing. They say change and then it's the same old thing, right? But for me, it's really turning back the clock while also moving us forward, showing you, making the game better, making wrestling better, and giving you those things that people have been missing for a long time. People have been missing something like Darius Carter. You don't get to see Darius Carter when you go and turn on the TV. You're not seeing something like me. So for me to have these opportunities to now project that to people and to show people what they haven't been able to see, that's the joy in it. That's the real kicker. And then when someone else sees it and they want to pick you up, and then, and now your name is getting jumbled up there. Now people see what's going on, and it's been in front of their face the whole time. And I think that's kind of been my life. I think I'm always a hardworking person. I'm always somebody that tries to keep my nose to the grind. And sometimes the hardest working person doesn't get the most rewarded. But it comes in time. You may not be the favorite at that point, but if you keep hustling, you become undeniable because you're the one who's keeping the place going. You're the one who keeps the flames rolling. So to me, it's natural, and you just can't stop. You can't even look back and say, "Oh man, I'm tired." Oh, you can't because you could have been tired a long time ago. I've had plenty of reasons to be tired. I've had plenty of reasons just to say, you know what? Let me just go pursue business, and I'm doing more than fine with that. I don't particularly need wrestling, but my spirit needs wrestling. My mind needs wrestling. My soul needs wrestling. And that's what living is about. So I'm going to do this as long as I can, as great as I can, and show people, continue to prove people wrong. I'll be proving people wrong 10 years from now, 20 years from now. That's just the way that it is.
Well, Darius, I can't thank you enough for your time. We're gonna be seeing you next week, and hopefully you'll be able to come on live with us while we're at Ridgefield Park. I don't know if that's going to happen because I know you're going to be busy before the show and after the show, but hopefully you can stop over to the table, jump on the show with us for a few minutes. This has been a lot of fun, and can't thank you enough for the time. And this was great, man. I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you. No, it was a swell time. I hope I answered all the questions in entirety. I love this sport. I will defend this sport. I am the protector of this sport, and just wait and see. All the things coming. My Instagram, my Facebook, my Twitter.
Yeah, check it out. Plug it all, baby. At
Mr. Darius Carter, I'm constantly posting, whether it's a story, whether it's a post, whether it's a tweet. You're always getting content. I keep you in the loop, in the world, in the stories that I am weaving. I just posted something the other day, and I said, all the feuds I'm managing, because you can see these little heads, these little avatars. I'm like, I'm managing more feuds. We talk about feud of the year. Let's talk about who has more feuds in a year than Darius Carter. I'm creating beef with everybody because I'm hungry and because it's my time to sit at the table, candle lit, wine glass swirling, aroma in the air. Butler, bring me my cheese.
And when you say you're making feuds and enemies, you're including my 10-year-old stepson. So with that being said, Darius, hold on 1 second. We'll be back right here on the Cut Pro Wrestling Podcast to close everything out. All right, that was Darius Carter here on the Cut Pro Wrestling Podcast. Don't forget to give us a follow on social media and a follow on all of our podcast platforms. We're going to start going to some more independent wrestling shows and doing some live shows through StreamYard and YouTube and Facebook. So keep in contact with what we're doing. Give us a like. I know we've been a little sporadic for shows. We have a great roster of guests coming up for you here on the Cut Pro Wrestling Podcast. Again, I want to say thank you to the crew, Austin, Andrew, John, Jamie, Alyssa. We just have a great staff that's working behind the scenes to help make this great. So with that being said, we will see you next week with a big surprise on the Cut Pro Wrestling Podcast. Follow us at We Are Wrestling this upcoming Friday night, next Friday night out in Richfield Park, New Jersey. You'll see the live stream on all of our platforms. Until then, my name is Randy Zelli from Back Sports Page, and we will see you next time here on the Cut Pro Wrestling Podcast.